Hi, welcome to Faces of Farming. I'm Cheryl Mitchell, the president of Tree 11, which is a retreat and learning center here in Addison County, and also one of the farm to community mentors for NOFA, the Northeast Organic Farming Association. And I'm really thrilled today that our guest, who's agreed to join us, is Eugenie Doyle from the Last Resort Farm, which is up in Moncton. So welcome, and thank you very much for coming. Maybe we could start by you just describing a little bit what your farming operation is like these days.
Okay. Our farm is the Last Resort in Moncton. It's a 280-acre family-owned farm, former dairy farm. So at this time of year, right now, there's not much going on because our focus is selling organic hay, vegetables, and berries. So the hay is in the hay loft, and we are selling that, but everything else, the fields are covered. And we do have 2 hoop houses, but this winter has been so cold that there's not much production from those right now. Mm-hmm. My son, one of my sons has an aquaponics project going in the barn.
What's aquaponics?
Aquaponics is a closed system of raising fish and hydroponic plants together, where the wastewater from the fish feeds the plants.
Wow.
He has lettuce and strawberries growing now, and the fish are rainbow and brook trout.
Oh, amazing. When you said there wasn't much happening,
well,
it actually sounds like there is.
Well, that's interesting because for him there's a lot happening. I actually, it is definitely his project, so I have very little to do with the fish. Okay. So from my point of view, during the winter I focus on planning for the next season, hiring help, giving talks at conferences, going to conferences, learning new things, writing to kids in the Pen Pal program, which we'll talk about, and doing some writing of my own.
What,
as well.
Poetry or?
Mostly fiction.
Fiction?
Yeah. I have written 2 novels, young adult novels, and a picture book, and I'm working on some others.
A picture book about farming by any chance?
Yes. Yes, it's called Sleep Tight Farm. It's about putting a modern vegetable operation to bed in December.
Wow.
So it's a little variation on.
Well, let's come back to that in a few minutes when we talk about the letter writing program. But I'm wondering, you've seen many, many changes, and I'm wondering, could you give us a synopsis of the history of your family moving from Brookfield to
here,
Addison County?
Yes, and I think our family's experience was not unique. I will say that. We started off, my husband Sam Burr and I started off in Brookfield. His sister had a goat dairy there, which we worked on, and he worked on other dairy farms, and I did as well. And then we finally bought our own very small dairy farm, milked 28 cows, and raised about 2 acres of strawberries and a market garden. Mm-hmm. And we had very little land. We rented a lot of hay land, so that land was sold for development, and we needed to find something else, and we moved to Addison County at that point. So that was 1986.
And was that already an ongoing dairy farm
that
when you moved here?
It was it was, well, they had just sold their cows, but the farm itself had been in the same family for 150 years, the Shattuck family. Beautiful farm, and they were just getting to the point where Bill Shattuck's health was not so good, and they needed to make a change. Mm-hmm. So we were the first non-family group to come in there. We were very honored to do that because it's a farm with a lot of history, a lot of care behind it.
It's beautiful too. Could you describe it a little bit for us?
It's very beautiful. Let's see, rolling land. It is clay soil, also grass, as everybody in Addison County knows. Grass and corn grow really well there. Yeah. We have had to really work at adding organic matter to the soil and getting it into better crop land for strawberries and vegetables. Mm-hmm. But it also has a knoll that has maple trees on it, so we do sugar there. It had a lot of pasture land for cows. Because when we came here, we did expand our dairy, and we were milking 60 jerseys at that time.
So you brought your own herd with you
We
and
did.
then added?
Yes, exactly. But this was the late 80s. The milk prices were historically low at that point. We were not able to continue milking, and so we sold the cows. At a time when many, I think the year we sold the cows, 10,000 dairy farms went out of business in Wisconsin. So we were not happy about it, but we were also not alone. And then we switched gears a little bit. We expanded our vegetable plantings and our berry plantings. We were getting more committed to organic production than the dairy had been conventional. We got involved with NOFA, Vermont, the organic organizing and certifying agency for the state, and got involved with local farmers markets.
So you were one of the first 2 organic strawberry growers in the state, is that right?
Yes, Joey Klein, as far as I know. Now, you never know. These statistics are kind of loosely collected, I think, but as far as I know, Joey Klein was the first in Plainfield. And then when we came over here, there were many great strawberry growers in the area, including in our own town, Moncton. There's the Norrisberry Farm. But the niche that we selected was to switch to organic production.
What was that like? How difficult was it to do that?
Well, the major difficulty, as I saw it, was that all of a sudden we could not use herbicides, which meant, and that didn't mean we didn't have any weeds. It meant we really had to pull them. So a lot more labor, a lot more intensive, and just a learning curve. I think that's true of any farm that transitions from conventional to organic practices. Our hearts are there, and we really want to do the right thing. We want to do the right thing for our families because we want to eat organic food, but we don't necessarily, if our training was in conventional agriculture, we don't necessarily know what to do. So there was a learning curve.
Were you an ag student at UVM or
no? I was an adult ag student there, but no, my undergraduate degree was in English.
Oh, mine too.
I mean, it's after that you can do anything, I guess. It certainly isn't clear what you should do with an English degree, but it's come in handy.
So it sounds like you kept on taking, it sounds like you still do take courses and workshops. Were there any?
Oh, sure. I think most farmers do. It's kind of like teachers. They're always involved in, lifelong learning and re-education, and that's very true of farming because things change. Yeah. I mean, it was true when we were dairy farmers, and it is definitely true now. Things have changed. For example, production under plastic. Now just about every diversified farm has a couple of hoop houses or high tunnels. You see them everywhere. That's partly because there was some government help to put them up, and then we all have to learn what to do with them. So that's been a big
And they
thing.
survive in this horrible cold
you,
weather?
Well,
I would think that they would get brittle and
the plastic itself.
Yeah.
The threat to the plastic is from the snow load, but as long as you keep them cleared off, and as long as you have some good luck, they don't collapse. And if they do collapse, it's the plastic that breaks. So there's a lot of plastics that's replaced.
Yeah.
Definitely one of the environmental challenges for all our young high school students and college students out there is to figure out what to do with agricultural plastic. 'Cause there's a lot of it.
You got involved a couple of years ago with helping to bring along the next generation of farmers, sort of elementary school students who are interested in farming.
Yes. I actually, when I first came to Vermont, I taught in Montpelier for a program called the Environmental Education Program. It was a federally funded program that took kids out of the classrooms, and we did all sorts of things with them. And part of that was agriculturally oriented, and part of it had to do with personal safety. Part of it had to do with community awareness. It used environmental education in a very large sense. But I definitely, for a long time, have worked with kids around food and where food comes from. So, and Sam and I have 3 kids, which we I was a 4-H leader, and and a substitute teacher in the school, because farmers always have to find other ways to earn money. And so I've worked in the schools a lot. And then since I know about farming, what I end up talking to them about is food and farming, and kids love food.
Yeah.
So they're very good students for that kind of thing.
Well, I know you were good enough to bring a couple of letters.
Right,
One that you wrote to a class and maybe a response.
Sure,
Would you
I'd be happy
read
to.
an excerpt
You
or
want me
something?
to read an excerpt?
Yeah,
okay,
that would
so
be
this is
great.
from the letter that I wrote in November of last year to Ruth Beecher's 3-4 class in Starksboro, and this is through the NOFA Farm to School Pen Pal program,
Right.
which we've been part of for some time. It definitely combines my interest in literacy and in farms. So this is, Dear Miss Beecher's class. First of all, please, please, please send me your names so I don't have to address you so formally and collectively as Miss Beecher's class. Although I will say you are lucky to be in this class and to have such a great teacher. I look forward to reconnecting with my friends from last year and meeting everyone who is new. As you old-timers know, my name is Eugenie Doyle and I'm your farmer pen pal. I will send you 4 letters detailing our winter activities on our farm. If you write back to me asking questions, I will do my best to answer them. And I love hearing your news. Then next May, I would love it even more if you would come to visit the Last Resort Farm. By then, I hope you will know so much about this farm that you will arrive as young farmers and not simply as visitors. My husband Sam, son Silas, and I would like you to feel at home here with the comfort that comes from knowledge. That knowledge will come from our exchange of letters. So I don't know if you want to hear more, but then I send them pictures of the family and of the chickens and of our cat and of the fish and of our other helpers, and they write back questions, and they always want to know, do you have any dogs? Or how old are you? Or
do you want to read
go
a
on
little
vacations?
excerpt from one
of their
the
letters
back to you?
Sure.
With drawings, I see.
Oh, yes, with drawings. I don't know if those will show up here, but it says, Hi, Eugenie. Thank you for the 7-page letter. The class really enjoyed it. You answered my questions, so I'll answer yours. I don't think all food comes from farms. But without farms, we wouldn't have all the ingredients to make all the yummy foods we eat now, like Doritos and Oreos. Now on to the types of farms you asked about. There are lots of types of farms in Vermont, but I'll tell you 3. Dairy farms, tree farms, and animal farms. Now I have a few questions for you. How are your fish surviving during the winter? Do you get a lot of snow? How old was your pig when you gave her away? Do you name your fish? Etc. So they're quite, as you can see, they're very chatty and they're very personal.
Are you getting a separate letter from each
from
child
each
in the
child?
class?
Yes, yes, and some of them,
some
of them write group letters. There are a few that team up and have a scribe, I assume, with the best handwriting to send them. Yeah, and then they'll come in May.
And they'll come in May to visit you.
Right. And Ruth and I have been doing this together for, I think this is our 4th year.
How wonderful.
So, yeah,
it's just
it is. It's a lot
exactly,
of
I
fun.
think, the way they dreamt that the program would work when it was first set up, just to have that kind of personal interaction.
I think so, and it goes on. I think there are 90 writing pairs at this point. There may be more than that, but there's a lot of exchange.
Yeah.
So,
do you have a guess about whether the idea of becoming farmers is again something that kids are thinking about?
Well, I don't know about this age of child, grade school children. I think probably not so much. They want to be NBA players, or movie stars. But I think that with the college age, we've seen a big switch. We hire a lot of local kids every summer. We always said as our children aged, we hired an older group. When they were 12, we had a lot of 12-year-olds working there. Then when we had a lot of 15-year-olds, and we had a lot of college-age kids. And now we have kids that are in college and after college age. And I do see a lot more interest in, well, we work with a lot of UVM kids who are studying environmental studies or in their farmer education program. I think books like Michael Pollan's Omnivore's Dilemma has encouraged people to think about food more and where their food comes from, and to want to. It's a little bit like what Sam and I went through, the Back to the Land movement of the 70s, and I think there might be a little bit of a new one.
Are you also setting, when Melanie and Warren were here, they were talking about having woofers, the willing workers on organic farms, come as volunteers. Is that something that you're set up to do? You have you hire help during the summer.
We hire help, and for many reasons. We have a lot of work that really needs to be done, and woofers usually stay for a shorter period of time, and you have to do a lot of teaching. It's a great experience, I think, for the woofer. I'm not sure it always works out for the farmer, but I think that's also just our selection. Usually woofers live with the family. We have always, we have never really wanted our helpers to live with us. We like having kids that can go home and, you know, play with their dogs, or go waitress at night at, you know, some local restaurant, or have their own lives, and then come back fresh the next day.
So what kinds of work do they do for you in the summer?
Oh, there's so many different things. Planting, and it depends on the age of the helper, because we do have older, more managerial kind of staff, but planting, harvesting, lots of weeding, and working at our farm stand, you know, customer service. Do you have an on-farm stand, or do you also do the farmers markets? We do both. We do both, yeah. We've, for many years, we did quite a few farmers markets, Bristol, Richmond, South Burlington. Right now we're just doing Richmond. So we have one farmers market a week. We have a farm share program, which is like a CSA program, where people come to the farm and they have sort of a punch card. They can get anything they want, sort of at a discount, is the way it works.
That's
it's a free
interesting.
choice.
That's a different model than most CSAs.
It's a little bit of a different model,
isn't
right?
it? Yeah.
And that's because we like having free choice. We don't want people to get a lot of, you know, I don't know, celeriac if they don't want it. That's our feeling. Whatever. So we sell things that way, and then we also wholesale to Burlington, to City Market and Healthy Living.
Beyond the berries?
Yes. Our berries are big crops, strawberries, and we also grow raspberries, blueberries, currants, gooseberries, mulberries. And then vegetable crops, we grow, well, I tell the kids we grow everything from asparagus to zucchini, and then they have to fill in what vegetables that might be. But our biggest crops are probably asparagus, garlic, tomatoes, ginger.
And then are you using your hoop houses for extended season?
Yeah, we grow greens primarily in them, and then we have, very exciting, we've started growing ginger in one of them. We planted in April and then harvested in September. It's baby ginger. It's a very different kind of crop than what you grow. But I always say it's like the first tropical plant that we're able to really grow and enjoy in Vermont, and that maybe someday, the flip side of the bad things about climate change would be if we could grow bananas and avocados and pineapples here.
Right.
But I don't think that'll happen. But
you'd mentioned some other concerns around climate change, not just how do you deal with the plastic, but what else is on your mind?
You asked about changes that we'd seen. And we have seen this change from in our lives, from dairying to, you know, other diversified crops. But I think the weather that everybody is seeing right now, you know, hot, wet summers, a lot of wet, and in Addison County it's very difficult to deal with saturated soil. That's become worse. And then this extreme cold combined with the snow. You know, usually we say this is like an old-fashioned winter, but we always had January thaws before. Yeah. This is really the deep freeze. And it does get very deeply into the ground. I think it'll make for a slower start this spring. We don't really know. We don't know what to expect. So that's the concern, is that we have to be more resilient than before.
So what's your process for sort of tracking changes over time? Are you obsessively writing things down, or is it just you're mental memory of what happened?
Well, I think it's a collective memory because we're definitely we're part of NOFA, we're part of the Vermont Vegetable and Berry Growers Association, part of Farm Bureau, part of a lot of agricultural organizations that do anecdotally collect information. We give our experience, our observations to students from UVM that are actually studying and doing the statistical work. We're not really statisticians at all.
But it's nice that you can pass information
I mean,
on to folks.
as much as our memories function, we kind of remember from year to year. But I think we also just read and hear other people's comments too about the changes.
Well, one of the other changes, I think the model that you all developed in working with the land trust and development rights and affordable housing, it's not just farming that you've been involved in. Could you talk some about that relationship?
In the early 90s when milk prices were very, very low, and before we sold the cows, we were looking for ways to bring the farm more income, and we had quite a bit of land, and some of it was unused pasture far from the main farm, so it was not good pasture for the cows. And we explored developing some of it. So we did do what they called then a planned residential development. It was a cluster of 12 lots, 11 of which have been sold, one which we've kept for the family, and on 30 acres, and then matched by 30 acres of common land. And
were you one of the first to do that?
I think so, but I don't know. We didn't really. We weren't keeping score. We were just trying to.
You hear a lot more about that nowadays.
Yes. Although we don't see a lot of. We were hoping that people would replicate that model, and I don't see that quite so much. Although I do see a lot of people selling development rights, not necessarily with the housing, the affordable housing component. But I think it's worked out really well, and it did give the farm a chunk of money to stay in business. And now when we transition, because Sam and I are maybe, I don't know, approaching retirement age. We can't really tell how you tell, but one of our sons is interested in farming, but if he doesn't continue, we would like to be able to sell it to a farmer rather than a developer. And the rest of the 280 acres cannot be developed. So.
And you also, as part of that, had a relationship with Habitat for Humanity.
Well, yes. We had the 4 of the 12 lots were slotted to be affordable housing.
Okay.
This was our agreement with the State Housing and Conservation Board, that 4 of them would be affordable housing. When and basically those were owned by the Addison Community Trust, which was the land trust in Addison County at that time. They made an arrangement with Habitat Humanity that 2 of those lots would be given to families who would build their houses there. So they're beautiful houses that are there. Yeah.
So it seems like you've been involved in helping to build the Addison County community, and not just through your farm, but through some of these other activities and through your relationships with the schools. And I'm curious about what do you see for the future in this county?
For Addison County?
Yeah.
I know it'll be better off if we don't have a gas pipeline going through Moncton. I would hope and I would foresee more emphasis on renewable energy. We just put solar panels on one of our equipment sheds. A lot of our neighbors are doing similar things. And we have beautiful farmland here. I would foresee and hope that all the really skilled farmers here will find ways to keep farming and then to pass it on to younger, energetic people.
People certainly talk about this beautiful working landscape, and but it seems like it's been a challenge. I mean,
it is
not just for your family, but so many other families trying to keep that going.
It is. So, but I think more and more people, non-farmers, are realizing that it is in their interest to have somebody there farming. People do want to buy local food. And in this county, we have a lot of great home gardeners too, who they want the infrastructure to be there so that when they want to go buy manure, they want there to be a farm there to buy from.
Right.
When they want somebody to plow their field, they want there to be a farm there. So I think we have a lot of people, we're very, very lucky, which I always tell the kids in these letters to, notice what's going on here now as far as farming goes, because it's not happening everywhere in this country.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I feel really grateful and lucky that you've taken the time to come to
Thank you.
talk with us today.
Thank you. It's
Eugenie.
really a pleasure.
It's very inspiring to hear the stories of a family farm that's been first for 150 years in one family and now for many years in your family, and rolling with the changes. So
Thank
we
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having us.
And I also want to thank Middlebury Community Television for making the studio available to us, and to encourage any of you that would like to do, if you have a nonprofit or an issue of public education that you'd like to share, give them a call. They're wonderful people to work with. So thank you for joining us at Faces of Farming, and please let your friends know to watch us next week.